Hello and welcome to Full Tech Ahead. I am your host, Amanda Razani, and with me today, I'm excited to have Cassandra Maldini. She is the Vice President of Privacy and AI Governance at Security.AI. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be with you.
Happy to have you on the show. So, can you share first a little bit about yourself and then Security AI? What services do you provide?
Sure. Again, Cassandra Maldini. I have the coolest job in the world. So I started out as a lawyer. Still, obviously, I sit right at this junction of law and regulatory compliance and product and innovation. And it is really the coolest place to sit right now because I get to wear so many different hats and I get to exercise so much of my brain muscle every day. Still obviously staying abreast with all of the developments that go on in the regulatory compliance realm for privacy and AI governance, which, as you know, is constantly evolving. And so there's so much to learn and grow in every day. It just never gets old. And then building a product. Security AI provides a product that helps our customers facilitate their compliance and enables the safe use of data and AI in this world of where the velocity of innovation is just accelerating every single day. And so to be in this space, the law is typically slow, right? And so to step into a space where it is extremely fast and where we have to adapt and evolve all the time, I think is super exciting at this time. So that's what I do. That's what I get to do every day. Every day is different, and so that's why this space is so exciting right now.
Awesome. Well, that's a good segue into our topic of the day, which is that the biggest AI risk boards aren't talking about, which is risk silos and the fragmentation. So, with that, you were talking about AI governance, and it seems every department defines that a little differently. So,
Yeah.
from your experience, where is that fragmentation and why has it lasted for so long?
So the fragmentation is sort of, I'm gonna possibly date myself by making this reference, but there was a great movie that came out in the late 80s called The Princess Bride. And Inigo Montoya, keeps looking at his friend over here who keeps saying inconceivable. And he says, you keep saying that word. I don't think that you know what it means. Or I don't think you think that you know what it actually means. But that's not actually the case. With AI governance, if you have 10 people in the room, you're going to get 10 different definitions of AI governance. And that's not because nobody knows what it means. It's because it truly does actually mean 10 different things to 10 different types of risk professionals. And I don't think that we're talking about that enough. We keep just floating around this term AI governance without actually indicating what type of AI governance are we talking about. And I'll break that down for you with what that looks like in an organization and why it causes risk silos and this fragmentation. So when the privacy team says AI governance, they mean we need to do some legitimate interest analysis for the models that we're leveraging and make sure that we are getting notice and consent correctly for any models that we're using and that we're compliant with the GDPR, right? The security team, when they are talking about AI governance, they're worried about, this increasing attack surface that they're dealing with, the complete annihilation of the blood-brain barrier between OS security and app security with AI agents, and prompt injection attacks that they've never really had to deal with before at this level. We were just dealing with phishing attacks before, right? And then, whenever legal is talking about AI governance, they can mean a number of different things. They can mean, does our product actually adhere to the responsible AI principles that we have put to market, right? Does our content marketing strategy align with the FTC's, unfair and deceptive trade practices? They could mean import-export rules, right? If they're importing or exporting a model, right? Such as like Meta has gone through with Europe. So and we haven't even gotten to like data governance. There, when they say AI governance, they're talking about like maybe model provenance, maybe lineage, maybe tagging, classification. So and IT is caring about like role-based access controls and provisioning of all of these enterprise use cases of AI. So I think that it's a fascinating time because what you have is you have all of these risk teams that have different pieces of the AI governance puzzle. And the biggest risk that enterprises face is not getting those people in the same room with those puzzle pieces to fit together so that you can make a composite AI governance puzzle, right? We can't do this piece by piece. It's not going to work. We've got to get in the same room. We've got to talk about what AI governance means to each of these teams. We have to see where the Venn diagram then exists between teams and work together so that we're not overburdening the business with assessments that could be done in half the time, or, we could move faster if we work together.
So, first of all, I love the reference to the movie, one of my favorite movies. Um, but second of all, it does seem generative AI is causing all these different departments to try to come together and break down these barriers pretty quickly, because otherwise there are all these issues. So, from your experience, how do we get the end of these silos, and how do we best come together?
Number one, it's courageous leadership from the top. The leaders of companies, and I'm talking CEOs, boards, VPs of product, et cetera. They're the ones, and even your top legal minds, right? They need to come to the table with courageous leadership and say, look, this is not just one thing. And they have to work cross-functionally, recognize the cross-functional nature of AI governance, and they have to get everybody to the table. The analogy that I like to use is, if you think about old movies, we're going to make a lot of movie references now. I don't have a specific one in my mind for this, but you'll know, right? If you watch a lot of older movies, oftentimes whenever we would have like a military scene, you would see this battlefield map, and then you would see all the generals surrounding the battlefield map, and they would be moving the battalions, around the battlefield map. And if you think about AI governance and your data ecosystem, right, the generals are your CEO, your CISO, your chief privacy officer, your chief data officer, chief information officer, head of data governance, head of IT, head of product, head of engineering, right? These are your generals. And if you think about the military, the Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine would never go into battle without previously consulting with their fellow generals, coming up with a united, approach to handle this particular threat and conducting joint exercises on this battlefield map and creating a plan. And to me, that's actually what Security.AI provides. We're sort of the provider of the battlefield map by allowing you to see your data ecosystem. Truly, this is not even an AI governance issue. AI governance is just the forcing, or generative AI is just the forcing function for this. This should have been done a long time ago, which is why I joined the company. I joined the company as a customer first years ago, and then as a member of the advisory board, and now finally joining the team because I believe that we all need to understand that truly what we are is data risk professionals. Some of us are security subject matter experts. Some of us are privacy subject matter experts, data governance, IT, et cetera. But all of that is data risk. And what we do with that data is tactical, similar to how the Navy is a subject matter expert in attacking from the sea. And the Air Force is a subject matter expert attacking from the air, right? But we all need each other, and we're all working to contain the same threats and defend against the same threats. So I think that that's what generative AI, with its speed, with its innovation, with its just sort of blowing all of our traditional governance out of the water, it is forcing us to come to the table and recognize what we should have been doing from the beginning, right?
Right. So you're saying that data risks do not operate in silos,
Right.
and as all these departments are coming to this realization, I'd love to hear your thoughts or examples of what happens when, privacy, security, compliance, when they do handle their own piece of the risk without cross-functional coordination. What are some of the problems that occur there?
So I'm going to talk about problems from a few different levels. And the first piece that I think, now that I've reached sort of like a business executive type level, I want to speak to business executive problems. Okay. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money and a waste of resources to the point where I can't really even quantify it, but I hope that one of the big four does try. Because if you think about the number of meetings that we schedule, privacy, security, data governance, IT, all scheduling meetings with product, all scheduling meetings with whoever is trying to go through the procurement process and procure a new AI tool. And we're asking them the same questions. I can't tell you how many times as a privacy practitioner, when I was privacy counsel at various companies, that I would be told, oh, I was just talking to security last month and they asked me that same thing, right? Redundancy. How many companies would love to and do have reduction of redundancy efforts? All of them. All of them want us to reduce SaaS tools. This is a way. You guys should all be using the same tool instead of all of these different point solutions, right? We all have these point solutions, but we're not talking the same language. We're not looking at the same data. One person's, data governance has their tool, security has their tool. None of us are working from the same lexicon. We're not talking to each other, et cetera. So that's one way to reduce redundancy. Another way is to reduce human effort redundancy. If we go through and we acknowledge that we need a common controls framework, that 50% of our compliance with the GDPR will also align with 50% of compliance with ISO 27001. That the only way that we can do ISO 42001 compliance is if we get 6 different teams together. This will reduce human resource redundancy. Time equals money. And so, the amount of meetings that can get collapsed into 1 or 2 instead of 30 or 40, right? These are the types of things that I think from a business executive level that we need to understand. First of all, again, this is not just for AI, but what is the point of AI right now in business is to get to market quickly. Well, we can do that, but the only way that we can do that is if we stop being blockers by being silos, right? Whenever we work together cross-functionally, we will reduce the pain and suffering of our product teams and our enterprise teams as well. The other thing is we will drastically reduce risk, because if we work together and I know from a privacy perspective what security is doing, what data governance is doing, et cetera, I will know where I can help, where I have information that they can leverage. Also, I will reduce the amount of time that security professionals are worrying about data governance because somebody else is already taking care of XYZ ABC controls. And so then they can get back to typical red teaming exercises, bug bashing exercises, et cetera. So if you think about just what that means, cross-functional collaboration is a positive net gain in resources from a business perspective. Complete positive net gain in the reduction of risk from a compliance perspective as well. If I can tell you that by implementing one control cross-functionally, it will satisfy 5 different compliance requirements, why would I not do that? Why would I not do that? Why would I have separate compliance projects for PCI and HIPAA and GDPR and ISO 27000? Why would I do that? Waste. So for me, getting rid of the risk silos or continuing with risk silos really is a huge waste of time, money, and effort.
Excellent points. Well, as we know, with some new acts that have come down, like the EU AI Act and California's Act, how do you think this is changing or shaping the roles between like CISOs, CPOs, and other executive roles? How are these going to have to evolve?
So I would argue that even regulations that seem to be pretty purist, right? Like the GDPR seem to be pretty purist as a privacy regulation. I would argue that it had cross-functional requirements with security as well, with our technical and organizational measures, particularly data governance requirements. If we have to know our data to do records of processing activities, we need to lean on data governance. We just haven't been as good at it. And the regulatory landscape has shifted. And if you think about all of the new acts that are coming out, like you mentioned, the EU AI Act, NIST 800-53, ISO 42001, all of these NIST AI RMF right? Even something that's not even AI related. Let's think of something that's IoT related, the EU Data Act. If you think about all of these regulations that are coming out, and I didn't even mention any that were in the US, the Colorado AI Act, et cetera, California CCPA, these are cross-functional regulations and industry standards by design, right? There is a regulatory revelation that, oh, in order to, completely secure the data that's involved in AI, the data that's involved in IoT devices, and data in general, right? We need cross-functional efforts. And so the requirements are cross-functional. We must become more cross-functional ourselves and realize that the regulations are asking us to reduce our silos, right? And so I think that what you're seeing is this evolution. And if you look, even if you look on LinkedIn, I attend the Cancero Chief Privacy Officer conferences every year and the IAPP conferences. And what I'm seeing is over the last 5 years, you've seen a growth of the number of professionals that are not purist anymore. They are not just chief privacy officers. They're chief privacy and cybersecurity. They're chief privacy and data governance. They're chief privacy and AI, right? And so I think that organizations, whether they realize it or not, are recognizing that there's really no need for this segregation among data compliance and data risk teams. And I would anticipate that in the next 5 years that you'll see that trend grow and that you'll see data compliance, data risk become one large org, and that we will be subject matter experts, hopefully working much more closely together.
Awesome. Well, it'll be interesting to see how the future unfolds. If there was one key takeaway you could leave our audience with today, what would that be?
Get together, right? A lot of organizations are still sort of in the nascent phases of AI governance and trying to figure out best practices. The best practices, the first best practice is to get in the room with the right stakeholders. Get in the room with the right people who are subject matter experts in all of these areas. Sit down at the table and first dedicate yourselves to the idea that this is a cross-functional effort, and dedicate yourself to the idea that this is a group project and that everybody has something to contribute. And that is how you're going to reach your pinnacle of not only compliant AI governance, but also effective and efficient AI governance.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and thank you to our listeners. And if you had any comments or questions, leave them in the comments below. And until next week, have a great day.